Shalom, shalom, everybody. Welcome back to Reading with Shilo, man. It's another late night. Another late night around here. And we're going to see. Last night, it was great, no interruptions with the internet connection. But, I hated reading late like that. But I tried to read early today. Didn't go through as well. So I'm going to go ahead and give it another go with the book of Jasher, chapters 22 through 24. What we're going to read today. Once again, let's get it on. Give me that. So I hope that y'all. Good night. I'm going to kick it back off. It's a chapter 22. Abraham's well and Terah's death. Abraham's well and Terah's death. If you come on in, leave me a comment. Let your people know. Let's get it. The ancient book of Jasher, as referenced in Joshua 10 and 13, 2 Samuel 1 and 18, and 2 Timothy 3 and 8. Abraham's well. Abraham's well and Terah's death. And Ishmael then rose up and took his wife and his children and his cattle and all belonging to him. And he journeyed from there to Ishmael. And he journeyed from there and he went to his father in the land of the Philistines. And Abraham related to Ishmael, his son, the transaction with the first wife that Ishmael took, according to what she did. And Ishmael and his children dwelt with Abraham many days in that land. And Abraham dwelt in the land of the Philistines for a long time. And the days increased and reached 26 years. And after that, Abraham, with his servants and all belonging to him, went from the land of the Philistines and removed to a great distance. And they came near to Hebron, and they remained there. And the servants of Abraham dug wells of water, and Abraham and all belonging to him dwelt by the water. And the servants of Abimelech, king of the Philistines, heard the report that Abraham's servants had dug wells of water in the borders of the land. And they came and quarreled with the servants of Abraham, and they robbed them of the great. And they robbed them of a great well, which they had dug. And Abimelech, king of the Philistines, heard of this affair, and he and with Phicol, the captain of his host, and 20 of his men came to Abraham. And Abimelech spoke to Abraham concerning his servants. And Abraham rebuked Abimelech concerning the well of which his servants had robbed him. And Abimelech said to Abraham, as the Lord liveth, who created the whole earth, I did not hear of the act which my servants did unto thy servants until today. And Abraham took 7 ewe lambs and gave them to Abimelech, saying, take this, I pray thee, from my hands, that it may be a testimony for me that I dug this well. And Abimelech took the 7 ewe lambs which Abraham had given to him, for he had also given him cattle and herds and abundance. And Abimelech swore to Abraham concerning the well. Therefore called the well Beersheba. For there they both swore concerning it. Man, I'm reading terrible already. I read good earlier. And they both made a covenant in Beersheba. And Abimelech rose up with Phicol, the captain of his host, and all his men. And they returned to the land of the Philistines. And Abraham and all belonging to him dwelt in Beersheba. And he was in that land a long time. And Abraham planted a large grove in Beersheba. And he made to it 4 gates facing the 4 sides of the earth. And he planted a vineyard in it, so that if a traveler came to Abraham, he entered any gate which was on his road and remained there and ate and drank and satisfied himself and then departed. For the house of Abraham was always open to the sons of men that passed and repassed, who came daily to eat and drink in the house of Abraham. And any man who had hunger and came to Abraham's house, Abraham would give him bread that he might eat and drink and be satisfied. And anyone that came naked to his house, he would clothe with garments as he might choose, and gave him silver and gold, and make known to him the Lord who had created him in the earth. This did Abraham all his life. And Abraham and his children and all belonging to him dwelt in Beersheba. And he pitched his tent as far as Hebron. And Abraham's brother Nahor and his father and all belonging to him dwelt in Haran. For they did not come with Abraham to the land of Canaan. And children were born to Nahor, which Milcah, the daughter of Haran, and the sister to Sarah, Abraham's wife, bare to him. And these are the names of those that were born to him: Uz, Buz, Kemuel, Kesed, Kazol, Pildash, Tidlith, and Bethuel, being 8 sons. These are the children of Milcah, which she bare to Nahor, Abraham's brother. And Nahor had a concubine, and her name was Reumah. And she also bare to Nahor Zabak, Gakash, Tukash, and Maacah, being 4 sons. And the children that were born to Nahor were 12 sons besides his daughters. And they also had children born to them in Haran. And the children of Uz were the firstborn of Nahor were Abi, Karif, Gadin, Melus, and Deborah, their sister. And the sons of Buz were Barakel, Neomath, Shiva, and Maduna. And the sons of Kemuel were Aram and Rakab. And the sons of Kesed were Anamelech, Mashai, Banan, and Yaphi. And the sons of Kazol were Pildash, Miki, and Ophir. And the sons of Pildash were Arub, Kamum, Mered, and Malak. And the sons of Tidlith were Mushan, Cushan, and Mutzi. And the children of Bethuel were Sakar, Laban, and their sister Rebekah. These are the families of the children of Nahor that were born to them in Haran. And Aram, the son of Kemuel, and Rakab, his brother, went away from Haran. And they found a valley in the land by the river of the Euphrates. And they built a city there. And they called the name of the city after the name of Pether, the son of Aram, that is Aram Naharim, unto this day. And the children of Chesed also went to dwell where they could find a place. And they went and they found a valley opposite to the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they there built themselves a city, and they called the name of that city Chesed, after the name of their father. That is the land Casdim unto this day. And the Casdim dwell in that land, and they were fruitful and multiplied exceedingly. And Terah, father of Nahor and Abraham, went and took another wife in his old age, and her name was Pelilah. Her name was Pelilah. And she conceived and bare him a son, and he called his name Zoba. And Terah lived 25 years after he begat Zoba. 2083, Terah died. And Terah died in that year. That is in the 35th year of the birth of Isaac, son of Abraham. And the days of Terah were 205 years, and he was buried in Haran. And Zoba, the son of Terah, lived 30 years, and he begat Aram, Achlis, and Merek. And Aram, son of Zoba, son of Terah, had 3 wives, and he begat 12 sons and 3 daughters. And the Lord gave to Aram, the son of Zoba, riches and possessions, and abundance of cattle, and flocks and herds, and the man increased greatly. And Aram, the son of Zoba, and his brother, and all his household journeyed from Haran, and they went to dwell where they should find a place. For their property was too great to remain in Haran, for they could not stop in Haran together with their brethren and children and the children of Nahor. And Aram, the son of Zoba, went with his brethren, and they found the valley in the distance toward the east country, and they dwelt there. And they also built a city there, and they called the name thereof Aram, after the name of their eldest brother. That is Aram Zoba to this day. And Isaac, the son of Abraham, was growing up in those days. And Abraham, his father, taught him the way of the Lord, to know the Lord, and the Lord was with him. 2085 AM. Abram told to offer Isaac. And when Isaac was 37 years old, Ishmael, his brother, was going about with him in the tent. And Ishmael boasted of himself to Isaac, saying, I was 13 years old when the Lord spoke to my father to circumcise us. And I did according to the word of the Lord, which he spoke to my father. And I gave my soul unto the Lord. And I did not transgress his word with which he commanded my father. And Isaac answered Ishmael, saying, Why dost thou boast to me about this, about a little bit of thy flesh, which thou didst take from thy body, concerning which the Lord commanded thee? As the Lord liveth, the God of my father Abraham, if the Lord should say unto my father, Take now thy son Isaac, and bring him up an offering before me, I would not refrain, but would joyfully accede to it, or accede. And the Lord heard the word that Isaac spoke to Ishmael. And it seemed good in the sight of the Lord. And he thought to try Abraham in this matter. And the day arrived when the sons of God came and placed themselves before the Lord. And Satan also came with the sons of God before the Lord. And the Lord said unto Satan, Whence comest thou? And Satan answered the Lord and said, From going to and fro on the earth, and from walking up and down in it. And the Lord said to Satan, What is thy word to me concerning all the children of the earth? And Satan answered the Lord and said, I have seen all the children of the earth who serve thee and remember thee when they require anything from thee. And when thou givest them that thing which they require from thee, they sit in their ease, and they forsake thee, and they remember thee no more. Thou hast seen Abraham, the son of Terah, who at first had no children, and he served thee and erected altars to thee wherever he came. And he brought up offerings upon them, and he proclaimed thy name continually to all the children of the earth. And now that he has his son Isaac is born to him, he has forsaken thee. He has made a great feast for all the inhabitants of the land, and the Lord has been forgotten. For amidst all that he has done, he brought thee no offering, neither burnt offering, nor peace offering, neither ox, lamb, nor goat, of all that he killed on the day that his son was weaned. Even from the time of his son's birth till now, being 37 years, he built no altar before thee, nor brought any offering to thee. For he saw that thou didst give what he requested before thee, and he therefore forsook thee. And the Lord said to Satan, hast thou thus considered my servant Abraham? For there is none like him upon earth, a perfect and an upright man before me, one that feareth God and avoideth evil. As I live, were I to say to him, bring up Isaac thy son before me, he would not withhold him from me. Much more if I told him to bring up a burnt offering before me from his flock or herds. And Satan answered the Lord and said, speak then now unto Abraham as thou hast said, and thou wilt see whether he will not do this day, whether he will not this day transgress and cast aside thy words. Chapter 23. Chapter 23. Abraham offers Isaac. At that time, the word of the Lord came to Abraham, and he said unto him, Abraham. And he said, here I am. Here I am. And he said to him, take now thy son, thine only son whom thou lovest, even Isaac, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains, which shall be shown to thee. For there will thou see a cloud and the glory of the Lord. And Abraham said within himself, how shall I separate my son Isaac from Sarah his mother, in order to bring him up for a burnt offering before the Lord? And Abraham came to the tent, into the tent, and he sat before Sarah and his wife. And he sat before Sarah his wife. And he spoke these words to her, my son Isaac is grown up, and he has not for some time studied the service of his God. Now tomorrow I will go and bring him to Shem and Eber his son, and there he will learn the ways of the Lord, for they will teach him to know the Lord, as well as to know that when he prayeth continually before the Lord, he will answer him. Therefore, there he will know the way of the serving the Lord his God. And Sarah said, thou hast spoken well. Go, my Lord, and do unto him as thou hast said. But remove him not a great distance from me, neither let him remain there too long. For my soul is bound with his soul. And Abraham said unto Sarah, my daughter, let us pray to the Lord our God, that he may do good with us. And Sarah took her son Isaac, and he abode all that night with her. And she kissed and embraced him, and gave him instructions till morning. And she said to him, O my son, how can my soul separate itself from thee? And she still kissed him and embraced him, and she gave Abraham instructions concerning him. And Sarah said to Abraham, O my Lord, I pray thee, take heed of thy son, and place thine eyes over him. For I have no other son nor daughter but him. O forsake him not. If he be hungry, give him bread. If he be thirsty, give him water to drink. Do not let him go on foot, neither let him sit in the sun, neither let him go by himself in the road, neither force him from whatever he may desire, but do unto him as he may say to thee. And Sarah wept bitterly the whole night on account of Isaac, and she gave him instructions till morning. And in the morning, Sarah selected a very fine and beautiful garment from those garments which she had in the house that Abimelech had given to her. And she dressed Isaac, her son, therewith. And she put a turban upon his head, and she enclosed the precious stone in the top of the turban. And she gave them provision for the road, and they went forth. And Isaac went with his father Abraham, and some of their servants accompanied them to see them off in the road. And Sarah went out with them, and she accompanied them upon the road to see them off. And they said to her, return to the tent. And when Sarah heard the words of her son Isaac, she wept bitterly. And Abraham, her husband, wept with her. And their son wept with them in a great weeping. Also, those who went with them wept greatly. And Sarah caught hold of her son Isaac, and she held him in her arms, and she embraced him, and she continued to weep with him. And Sarah said, who knoweth if after this day I shall ever see thee again? And they still wept together. Abraham, Sarah, and Isaac, and all those that accompanied them on the road wept with them. And Sarah afterward turned away from her son, weeping bitterly. And all her men servants and maid servants returned with her to the tent. And Abraham went with Isaac, his son, to bring him up as an offering before the Lord, as he had commanded him. And Abraham took two of his young men with him, Ishmael, the son of Hagar, and Eleazar, his servant. And they went together with them. And whilst they were walking in the road, the young men spoke these words to themselves. And Ishmael said to Eleazar, now my father Abraham is going with Isaac to bring him up for a burnt offering to the Lord, as he commanded him. Now when he returneth, he will give unto me all that he possesses, to inherit after him, for I am his firstborn. And Eleazar answered Ishmael and said, surely Abraham did cast thee away with thy mother, and swear that thou shouldest not inherit anything of all he possesses, and that thou should not inherit anything of all that he possesses. And to whom will he give all that he has, with all his treasures? But unto me, his servant, who has been faithful in his house, who has served him night and day, and has done all that he desired me. To me will he bequeath at his death all that he possesses. See, to me, that's why they wouldn't get it. That's why neither one of them gonna get it. Neither one of them. Because all they worried about is the possessions, the treasures. That's exactly why, like I thought earlier, that's exactly why Ishmael had to go in the first place. That's what Sarah said. He ain't gonna inherit. He ain't gonna kill my son and inherit the all the stuff, the possessions. Ooh, what a good. And whilst Abraham was proceeding with his son Isaac along the road, Satan came and appeared to Abraham in the figure of a very aged man, humble and of a contrite spirit. And he approached Abraham and said to him, art thou silly or brutish, that thou goest to do this thing this day to thine only son? For God gave thee a son in thy latter days, and in thy old age. And wilt thou go and slaughter him this day, because he committed no violence? And wilt thou cause the soul of thine only son to perish from the earth? Dost thou not know and understand that this thing cannot be from the Lord? For the Lord cannot do unto man such evil upon earth, to say to him, go, slaughter thy child. And Abraham heard this and knew that it was the word of Satan, who endeavored to draw him aside from the way of the Lord. But Abraham would not hearken to the voice of Satan. Abraham rebuked him so that he went away. And Satan returned and came to Isaac, and appeared unto Isaac in the figure of a young man, comely and well favored. And he approached Isaac and said unto him, dost thou not know and understand that O silly father, bringeth thee to the slaughter this day for naught. Now therefore, my son, do not listen nor attend to him, and for he is silly, he is a silly old man. And let not thy precious soul and beautiful figure be lost from the earth. And Isaac heard this, and he said unto Abraham, Hast thou heard, my father, that which this man has spoken? Even thus has he spoken. And Abraham answered his son Isaac and said to him, Take heed of him, and do not listen to his words, nor attend to him, for he is Satan, endeavoring to draw us aside this day from the commands of God. And Abraham still rebuked Satan, and Satan went from them, and seeing he could not prevail over them, he hid himself from them, and he went and passed before them in the road. And he transformed himself to a large brook of water in the road. And Abraham and Isaac and his two young men reached that place, and they saw the brook large and powerful as the mighty waters. And they entered the brook and passed through it, and the waters at first reached their legs. And they went deeper in the brook, and the waters reached up to their necks. And they were all terrified on account of the water. And whilst they were going over the brook, Abraham recognized that place, and he knew that there was no water there before. And Abraham said to his son Isaac, I know this place in which there was no brook nor water. Therefore, it is this Satan who does all this to us, to draw us aside this day from the commands of God. And Abraham rebuked him and said unto him, Lord, the Lord rebuke thee, O Satan, be gone from us, for we go by the commands of God. And Satan was terrified at the voice of Abraham, and he went away from them. And the place again became dry land as it was at first. And Abraham went with Isaac toward the place that God had told him. And on the third day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place at the distance which God had told him of. And the pillar of fire appeared to him that reached from the earth to heaven, and a cloud of glory upon the mountains. And the glory of the Lord was seen in the cloud. And Abraham said to Isaac, My son, dost thou see in that mountain, which we perceive at the distance, that which I see upon it? And Isaac answered and said unto his father, I see, and lo, a pillar of fire and a cloud, and the glory of the Lord is seen upon the cloud. And Abraham knew that his son Isaac was accepted before the Lord for a burnt offering. And Abraham said unto Eleazar and unto Ishmael, his son, Do you also see that which we see upon the mountain which is at a distance? And they answered and said, We see nothing more than like the other mountains of the earth. And Abraham knew that they were not accepted before the Lord to go with them. And Abraham said to them, Abide ye here with the ass, whilst I and Isaac my son will go to yonder mount and worship there before the Lord, and then return to you. And Eleazar and Ishmael remained in that place, as Abraham had commanded. And Abraham took wood for the burnt offering and placed it upon his son Isaac. And he took the fire and the knife, and they both went to that place. And when they were going along, Isaac said to his father, Behold, I see here the fire and wood. And where then is the lamb that is to be the burnt offering before the Lord? And Abraham answered his son Isaac, saying, The Lord has made choice of thee, my son, to be a perfect burnt offering instead of the lamb. And Isaac said unto his father, I will do all that the Lord spoke to thee with joy and cheerfulness of heart. And Abraham again said unto Isaac his son, Is there in thy heart any thought or counsel concerning this, which is not proper? Tell me, my son, I pray thee. O my son, conceal it not from me. And Isaac answered his father Abraham and said unto him, O my father, as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, there is nothing in my heart that caused me to deviate either to the right or to the left from the word that he has spoken to thee. Neither limb nor muscle has moved or stirred at this, nor is there in my heart any thought or evil counsel concerning this. But I am of joyful and of cheerful heart in this matter. And I say, blessed is the Lord, who has this day chosen me to be a burnt offering before him. And Abraham greatly rejoiced at the words of Isaac. And they went on and came together to that place that the Lord had spoken of. And Abraham approached to build the altar in that place. And Abraham was weeping. And Isaac took stones and mortar until they had finished building the altar. And Abraham took the wood and placed it in the order upon the altar which he had built. And he took his son Isaac and bound him in order to place him upon the wood which was upon the altar, to slay him for a burnt offering before the Lord. And Isaac said to his father, bind me securely, and then place me upon the altar, lest I should turn and move, and break loose from the force of the knife upon my flesh, and therefore profane the burnt offering. And Abraham did so. And Isaac still said to his father, O my father, when thou shalt have slain me and burnt me for an offering, take with thee that which shall remain of my ashes, to bring to Sarah my mother, and say to her, this is the sweet smelling savor of Isaac. But do not tell her this if she should sit near a well or upon a high place, lest she should cast her soul after me and die. Man, that boy knew what his mama was going to do. And Abraham heard the words of Isaac, and he lifted up his voice and wept when Isaac spake these words. And Abraham tears gushed down upon Isaac his son. And Isaac wept bitterly. And he said to his father, hasten thou, O my father, and do with me the will of the Lord our God as he has commanded thee. And the hearts of Abraham and Isaac rejoiced at this thing which the Lord had commanded them. But the eye wept bitterly, whilst the heart rejoiced. And Abraham bound his son Isaac and placed him on the altar upon the wood. And Isaac stretched forth his neck upon the altar before his father. And Abraham stretched forth his hand to take the knife to slay his son as a burnt offering before the Lord. At that time, the angels of mercy came before the Lord and spake to him concerning Isaac, saying, O Lord, thou art a merciful and compassionate king over all that thou hast created in heaven and in earth, and thou supportest them all. Give therefore ransom and redemption instead of thy servant Isaac, and pity and have compassion upon Abraham and Isaac his son, who are this day performing thy commands. Hast thou seen, O Lord, how Isaac, the son of Abraham, thy servant, is bound down to the slaughter like an animal? Now therefore, let thy pity be roused for them, O Lord. At that time, the Lord appeared unto Abraham and called to him from heaven and said unto him, lay not thy hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest God in performing this act, and in not withholding thy son, thine only son from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw, and behold, a ram was caught in the thicket by his horns. That was the ram which the Lord God had created in the earth in the day that he made earth and heaven. For the Lord had prepared this ram from that day to be a burnt offering instead of Isaac. And this ram was advancing to Abraham when Satan caught hold of it and entangled his horns in the thicket, that he might not advance to Abraham in order that Abraham might slay his son. And Abraham, seeing the ram advancing to him and Satan withholding him, fetched him and brought him before the altar. And he loosed his son Isaac from his binding, and he put the ram in his stead. And Abraham killed the ram upon the altar and brought it up as an offering in the place of his son Isaac. And Abraham sprinkled some of the blood of the ram on the altar. And he exclaimed and said, "This is in the place of my son. And may this be considered this day as the blood of my son before the Lord." And all that Abraham did on this occasion by the altar, he would exclaim and say, "This is in the room of the Lord in the place of my son." And Abraham finished the whole of the service by the altar, and the service was accepted before the Lord, and was accounted as if it had been Isaac. And the Lord blessed Abraham and his seed on that day. And Satan went to Sarah, and he appeared to her in the figure of an old man, very humble and meek. And Abraham was yet engaged in the burnt offering before the Lord. That boy was barbecuing. He was barbecuing when Satan went to Sarah. And he said unto her, "Dost thou not know all the work that Abraham has made with thine only son this day?" Ooh. For he took Isaac and built an altar and killed him and brought him up as a sacrifice upon the altar. And Isaac cried and wept before his father, but he looked not at him, neither did he have compassion over him. And Satan repeated these words, and he went away from her. And Sarah heard all the words of Satan, and she imagined him to be an old man from amongst the sons of men who had been with her son. And he came and told her these things. And Sarah lifted up her voice and wept and cried out bitterly on account of her son. And she threw herself upon the ground, and she cast dust upon her head. And she said, "Oh, my son, Isaac, my son, oh, that I had this day died instead of thee." And she continued to weep and said, "It grieves me for thee, oh, my son Isaac, oh, that I had died this day in thy stead." And she still continued to weep and said, "It grieves me for thee after that I have reared thee and have brought thee up. Now my joy is turned into mourning over thee. I that had a longing for thee and cried and prayed to God till I bare thee at 90 years old. And now hast thou served this day for the knife and the fire to be made an offering. But I console myself with thee, my son, in its being the word of the Lord, for thou didst perform the command of thy God. For who can transgress the word of our God, in whose hands is the soul of every living creature? For in whose hands is the soul of every living creature? Thou art just, O Lord our God, for all thy works are good and righteous. For I also have rejoiced with thy word which thou didst command. And whilst mine eyes weep bitterly, my heart rejoiceth. And Sarah laid her head upon the bosom of one of her handmaids, and she became as still as a stone. She afterward rose up and went about making inquiries till she came to Hebron. And she inquired of all those whom she met walking in the road, and no one could tell her what had happened to her son. And she came with her maid servants and men servants to Kiriath Arba, which is Hebron. And she asked concerning her son. And she remained there while she sent some of her servants to seek where Abraham had gone with Isaac. Excuse me. They went to seek him in the house of Shem and Eber, and they could not find him. And they sought throughout the land, and he was not there. And behold, Satan came to Sarah in the shape of an old man. And he came and stood before her. And he said unto her, I spoke falsely unto thee. And Abraham did not kill his son, and he is not dead. And when she heard the word, her joy was so exceedingly violent on account of her son that her soul went out through joy. She died and was gathered to her people. And when Abraham had finished his service, he returned with his son Isaac to his young men. And they rose up and went together to Beersheba, and they came home. And Abraham sought for Sarah and could not find her. And he made inquiries concerning her. And they said unto him, She went as far as Hebron to seek you both where you had gone. For thus was she informed. And Abraham and Isaac went to her to Hebron. And when they found that she was dead, they lifted up their voices and wept bitterly over her. And Isaac fell upon his mother's face and wept over her. And he said, O my mother, how hast thou left me? And where hast thou gone? Oh, how hast thou left me? And Abraham and Isaac wept greatly, and all their servants wept with them on account of Sarah, and they mourned over her a great and heavy mourning. Chapter 24. Isaac and Rebekah. 20:85 a.m. Sarah died. And the life of Sarah was 127 years. And Sarah died. And Abraham rose up from before his dead to seek a burial place to bury his wife Sarah. And he went and spoke to the children of Heth, the inhabitants of the land, saying, I am a stranger and a sojourner with you in your land. Give me a possession of a burial place in your land, that I may bury my dead from before me. And the children of Heth said unto Abraham, Behold, the land is before thee. In the choice of our sepulchres, bury the dead. For no man shall withhold thee from burying thy dead. And Abraham said unto them, If you are agreeable to this, go and entreat for me to Ephron, the son of Zachar, requesting that he may give me the cave of Machpelah, which is in the end of his field, and I will purchase it of him for whatever he desire for it. And Ephron dwelt among the children of Heth, and they went and called for him, and he came before Abraham. And Ephron said unto Abraham, Behold, all thou requirest, thy servant will do. And Abraham said, No, but I will buy the cave and the field which thou hast for value, in order that it may be for a possession of a burial place forever. And Ephron answered and said, Behold, the field and the cave are before thee. Give whatever thou desirest. And Abraham said, Only at full value will I buy it from thy hand, and from the hands of those that go in at the gate of thy city, and from the hand of thy seed forever. And Ephron and all his brethren heard this. And Abraham weighed to Ephron 400 shekels of silver in the hands of Ephron and in the hands of all his brethren. And Abraham wrote this transcription, and he wrote it in and testified it with 4 witnesses. Abraham wrote this transaction, and he wrote it and testified it with 4 witnesses. And these are the names of the witness: Ammiel, son of Abishna, the Hittite; Adikoram, son of Ashanuk, the Hivite; Adban, Abdon, son of Akoram, son of Acharon, the Gomerite; Bakdil, the son of Abadish, the Zidonite. And Abraham took the book of the purchase and placed it in his treasures. And these are the words that Abraham wrote in the book, namely, that the cave and the field Abraham bought from Ephron the Hittite, and from his seed, and from those that go out of his city, and from their seed forever, are to be purchased to Abraham and to his seed, and to those that go forth from his loins, for the possession of a burial place forever. And he put a signet to it, and testified it with witnesses. And the field and the cave that was in it, and all that place were made sure unto Abraham, and unto his seed after him, from the children of Heth, Behold, it is before Mamre in Hebron, which is in the land of Canaan. And after this, Abraham buried his wife Sarah there. And that place and all its boundaries became to Abraham and unto his seed for a possession of a burial place. And Abraham buried Sarah with pomp, as observed at the interment of kings. At the internment of kings. And she was buried in very fine and beautiful garments. And at her Bayer, which was Shem, his sons Eber and Abimelech, together with Anar, Ashkel, and Mamre, and all the grandeers of the land followed her Bayer. And the days of Sarah were 127 years, and she died. And Abraham made a great and heavy mourning, and he performed the rites of mourning for 7 days. And all the inhabitants of the land comforted Abraham and Isaac his son on account of Sarah. 20:85 a.m. Isaac studied with Shem. Man, that's crazy to me, man. It's really crazy to me how Shem and Eber were around at the time and Isaac pulling up on him. What up, Shem? What's good, baby? What you mean, Shem? Tell me about the flood, Shem. Tell me about the flood. And when the days of their mourning passed by, Abraham sent away his son Isaac. And he went to the house of Shem and Eber to learn the ways of the Lord and his instructions. And Abraham remained there 3 years. 20:88 a.m. Isaac returned to Beersheba. At that time, Abraham rose up with all his servants, and they went and returned homeward to Beersheba. And Abraham and all his servants remained in Beersheba. 20:86 a.m. That timeline off right there. Timeline off. Abimelech died. And at the revolution of the year, Abimelech, king of the Philistines, died in that year. He was 193 years old at his death. And Abraham went with his people to the land of the Philistines, and they comforted the whole household and all his servants. And he then turned and went home. And it was after the death of Abimelech that the people of Gerar took Ben-melech, his son, and he was only 12 years old. And they made him lying on the place of his father, in the place of his father. And they called his name Abimelech, after the name of his father. For thus was it their custom to do in Gerar. And Abimelech reigned instead of Abimelech his father, and he sat upon his throne. 20:87 a.m. Lot died. And Lot, the son of Haran, also died in those days, in the 39th year of the life of Isaac. And all the days that Lot lived were 140 years, and he died. And these are the children of Lot that were born to him by his daughters. The name of the firstborn was Moab, and the name of the secondborn was Ben-ammi. And the two sons of Lot went and took themselves wives from the land of Canaan, and they bare children to them. And the children of Moab were Ed, Maon, Tarsus, and Canvel, 4 sons. 4 sons, these 4 sons. These are fathers to the children of Moab unto this day. And all the families of the children of Lot went to dwell wherever they should light upon, for they were fruitful and increased abundantly. And they went and built themselves cities in the land where they dwelt. And they called the names of the cities which they built after their own names. 20:88 a.m. Nahor died. And Nahor, the son of Terah, brother to Abraham, died in those days in the 40th year of the life of Isaac. And all the days of Nahor were 172 years, and he died. 172, man. And was buried in Haran. And when Abraham heard that his brother was dead, he grieved sadly, and he mourned over his brother many days. And Abraham called for Eleazar, his head servant, to give him orders concerning his house. And he came and stood before him. And Abraham said to him, Behold, I am old. I do not know the day of my death, for I am advanced in days. Now therefore, rise up and go forth, and do not take a wife for my son from this place and from this land, from the daughters of the Canaanites amongst whom we dwell. But go to my land and to my birthplace, and take from thence a wife for my son. And the Lord God of heaven and earth, who took me from my father's house and brought me to this place, and said unto me, To thy seed will I give this land for an inheritance forever. He will send his angel before thee and prosper thy way, that thou mayest obtain a wife for my son, from my family, and from my father's house. And the servant answered his master Abraham and said, Behold, I go to thy birthplace and to thy father's house, and take a wife for thy son from there. But if the woman be not willing to follow me to this land, shall I take thy son back to the land of thy birthplace? And Abraham said unto him, Take heed that thou bring not my son hither again. For the Lord before whom I have walked, he will send his angel before thee and prosper thy way. And Eleazar did as Abraham ordered him. And Eleazar swore unto Abraham his master upon this matter. And Eleazar rose up and took 10 camels of the master's servants, 10 camels of his master's servants with him. And they rose up and went to Haran, the city of Abraham and Nahor, in order to fetch a wife for Isaac, the son of Abraham. And whilst they were gone, Abraham sent to the house of Shem and Eber, and they brought forth thence his son Isaac. And Isaac came home to his father's house, to Beersheba, whilst Eleazar and his men came to Haran. And they stopped in the city by the watering place, and they made his camels to kneel down by the water, and they remained there. And Eleazar, Abraham's servant, prayed and said, O God of Abraham, my master, send me, I pray thee, good speed this day, and show kindness unto my master, that thou shalt appoint this day a wife for my master's son from his family. And the Lord hearkened to the voice of Eleazar for the sake of his servant Abraham. And he happened to meet with the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, and the wife of Nahor, brother to Abraham. And Eleazar came to her house. And Eleazar related to them all his concerns, and that he was Abraham's servant, and they greatly rejoiced at him. And they all blessed the Lord who brought this thing about. And they gave him Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel, for a wife for Isaac. And the young woman was of very comely appearance. She was a virgin, and Rebekah was 10 years old in those days. Rebekah was 10 years old in those days. And Bethuel and Laban and his children, or Laban and his children, made a feast on that night. And Eleazar and his men came and ate and drank and rejoiced on that night. And Eleazar rose up in the morning, he and the men that were with him. And he called to the whole household of Bethuel, saying, Send me away, that I may go to my master. And they rose up and sent away Rebekah and her nurse Deborah, the daughter of Uz. And they gave him her silver and gold, men servants and maid servants, and they blessed her. And they sent Eleazar away with his men, and the servants took Rebekah, and he went and returned to his master to the land of Canaan. 2088 a.m. Isaac married Rebekah. And Isaac took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he brought her into the tent. And Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah, the daughter of his uncle Bethuel, for a wife. That is the end of chapter 24. And we are done with the reading for today. We'll come back next time. Next edition of Reading with Shilo. We'll start off with chapter 25, the sons of Keturah. Sons of Keturah. I hope that y'all got something out of that. Definitely was good. I didn't see no connection mess up. So it should be a slide through live. Mm-hmm. Wish I had some people on here, though. But we'll try to get tomorrow to see if I can get the next chapters in. 25, 26, 27, and maybe even 28. 25, 26, and 28. Let's see. But, man, I appreciate it. I hope everybody got something out of this, man. Until next time, man. Shalom, shalom. Let's try to do better. Let's try to keep doing better. Let's try to keep pushing, man. Let's try to keep rising and see what happens. But next time, man. Shalom out. Shalom. Y'all have a good one.